Hello everybody and welcome back to my tutorials. Today we're going to learn about if else in Java. In this tutorial you're going to learn all about control flow statements, and specifically for this tutorial you're going to learn about if and if else. Okay, we are going to dive deep into that, but first of all, in computer programming, we use if statements to control the flow of the program. For example, you can use an if statement if you want the computer to run a specific block of code. So with this being said, we're going to use an example of HackerRank so that we can see how we can try to solve if else in this particular problem. So I'm going to read out the problem and then we dive into the solution. In this challenge, we test your knowledge to using if-else conditional statements to automate decision-making processes. An if-else statement has the following logical flow. If A is true, A is the condition here. So if it's true, then do B. And if it's false, then do C. So this is our task. We are given an integer n. Perform the following conditional actions. The first one is if n is odd number, print weird. If n is even and in the inclusive range of 2 to 5, print not weird. If n is even and in the inclusive range of 6 to 20, print weird. If n is even and greater than 20, then print not weird. Okay, so this is a sample output, sample input and then output down here. So if we are given 3, our program should come to our statements, if statements, check if 3 is an odd number, and then if right away it's an odd number, we print weird. But if it's even, then we execute the following. Okay, so we are going to dive right into the code so that you can understand what I'm trying to say. Basically in Java, this is the way that you write if statements. You start with if and then brackets and then the condition here. So let me just write the condition, but of course we are going to change that, and then else to something else. So let me just start with if. All right, so with if, it says if the condition, for instance, if n, whatever we are receiving, is greater than, assuming it's greater than 2, all right, then probably you want to print out something. Print line, you want to print n is greater than 2. Okay, and then a semicolon there. So this is the condition that you're checking. So your program will run, and then assuming n is 3, as we have in this example, 3, then it will go into this block of code and print out n is greater than 2. Alright, but if you want to add another statement, assuming n in this case is not 3 but n is 1, so which means it's less than 2. So we can put another condition here so that if n is not greater than 2, then it falls into the else. So in short, you're telling the program to run this block of code if the n is not greater than 2. Okay, so whether it's 0, whether it's negative something, it will fall into the else. And then probably you just want to print out n is less or equal to 2. So let's jump into the code so that we can see how we can execute the whole program. So first of all, we want to check if n is an odd number. So that should be the first condition that you're going to check. So we're going to check n, The easiest way to check if it's an odd number, it's whereby when you divide by 2, then there's no remainder. So remember, I've used this sign and not this sign, not the division sign, so that we just check the remainder. So this is the sign to get the remainder, and we say if it's equal to 0, which means there is no remainder, assuming you want to divide 3 by 2, the remainder is 1. Okay, but if it's 4, you divide by 2, then there is no remainder, so the remainder is 0. So we check if the remainder is 0, then that's an even number. So first of all, I'm just let me just comment here that n is an even number, and then else, if it's not even number, we are told to print out something. So let's go ahead and start with the odd number. So if it's an odd number, then we print weird. But if it's not odd number, then we do other stuff, right? Let's go down here. So there's an even number, and for else, it's an odd number. Okay, and then we are instructed to print out weird if it's an odd number. All right, and then let me just remove this and now go into the even number. If it's an even number and in the range of inclusive 2 to 5. So let's start with that one. So since we're going to do a couple of things, then we better now write other if statements inside this if block of code. We check if n, let me just go back and confirm between 2 and 5. All right, if n is greater or equal to 2 and n is less or equal to 5. Remember, we're using equal because it's inclusive. Okay, and then we do something here. So we print out not weird. So assuming we only had this condition and this condition, it's easier for you just to write them here, and you use these signs to indicate that you want another condition to pass to go into this block of code. But in our case, we want to check if n is even the first time, and then we execute a number of things down here. So first of all, we check if it's between 2 and 5 inclusive, and then we just want to print out not weird. All right, not weird. Then we go to the next one. We check if it's even, yes, and then we check if it's between 6 and 20 inclusive, and then we print out weird. Say else if. So this is another statement that we use if we also want to check something else. So if the code is running and it doesn't go inside this block, then it will jump into the other block. But if you just write if something again, then it means that you're instructing the computer to run each and every if statement, whether this statement is satisfied or not. Whether n is between 2 and 5, it will go inside the first if, and also it will go inside the second if, regardless of whether it's satisfied already or not. For this case, if it's not between 2 and 5, then we want to check if it's between n is greater than or equal to 6, all right, and n is less or equal to 20. Okay, and then we just want to print out weird. Okay, so what this means is that in case n is between 2 and 5, then it goes in here, then it won't execute anything if else, because the condition is already satisfied here. Okay, and that's what we want for our case. All right, so the last condition is if n is even and greater than 20, then print out weird. We also need else if again, because if we use else, then a number like 0 will satisfy this condition, but in our case we want n to be even but at the same time to be greater than 20. So we have that condition, so we need to put else if. So n greater than 20, and then we just want print out not weird. Okay, let's confirm. Yeah, correct. So let's try to run our code. We need to sign up. Let me just sign up really quickly and then get back to the video. Okay, so the sign up is done. Let me go ahead and run this. And there you go. So the sample test code, the sample test case 0 has passed with input 3, and then it prints out weird because it's an odd number. Then for the second one, it's 24, it's an even number, and it's also greater than 20, so which means it will fall in this place. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our own testing. Let's say we want to input 1. So 1 is an odd number and it prints out weird. So let's go ahead and try 0. Run it again. No response, and that should be correct. And that's why I said if we had the last condition is else, then if we run the code, see what happens. You see it prints out not weird. But we don't want that because specifically the condition should be greater than 20. So 0 is not greater than 20. So let me just take the code back and add another input there, like 20. Run it and correct. So 20 is inside this if statement and it prints out weird. So that's it guys for today's tutorial. I hope you've learned something. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't, so that you can see more of these videos. If you have any question, please comment in the comments below so that I can get back to you. Thank you. See you next time.